I'm not here to beat up on every marketing agency, but I am here to say finding a good one's not easy. Let's have ourselves a pocket-sized pep talk because you're about to hear from a guest who had the same challenge. So he launched his own agency.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Erik Huberman, went from making only $350 in his first year in business to growing and selling two successful companies and creating Hawk Media, one of the fastest growing marketing consultancies in the U.S., valued at over $150 million. Companies service thousands of brands of all sizes, ranging from startups to household names like Red Bull, Verizon, and Alibaba. Erik's been awarded Inc.'s top 25 marketing influencers and Forbes 30 under 30. He recently launched his new book, The Hawk Method, and he's here with us today. Glad to have you with us. Welcome to the show, Erik.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You did your research.
I did. There's one thing I didn't research. How did I do on that name? Was I close?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, good. Because people have a fit with Jollis, so I was thinking I'm gonna give it a go. All right, man. Well, welcome aboard. With you, I want to start with I sort of the concept of getting access to great help. I work with a lot of authors, and obviously one of the most best ways and most expensive ways to market a book is with a publicist, and we're looking at $20,000-$30,000 campaign. But you write about kind of marketing on a smaller budget and getting more of that Fortune 100 help. I'm all ears. Tell me how we do that.
Yeah, and I would say it's, when I say Fortune 500 help for the masses, the idea is like there's still cost there. And like I'm actually a firm believer that if you're not running a company that can afford to spend at least 10 grand a month all in on your marketing, don't hire anyone, don't spend the money. Like you should be focusing on building your business in ways you can build your business. Because we talk about there's kind of two resources here. It's time or money. And if you don't have $10,000 to spend right now, then your resource is time, because you still have to put a lot of time into this. And if your time invested can't run the business and you don't have the money to, you might not have a good business. Like there's some harsh realities around this, but you got to get to the point where you can actually get a lever on that before you start outsourcing anything, whether it's hiring an in-house marketer, hiring an agency, et cetera. You got to kind of be at a point where the company's running. I don't believe in someone else making your company for you. I think a lot of people try to do that and it doesn't usually end up well.
Ooh. Well, my jaw dropped when I got $10,000 a month. I'm just celebrating my 30th year in business, and I never put $10,000 a month into marketing. But Erik, you'll be proud of me. I definitely have a marketing budget, and I think that's how I survived 30 years because people. I only have so many clients where I have to kind of extend my reach there. But I still want to back you up a little bit. I want to back you up, and so maybe it's 10,000, but give me some lower budget moves.
Sure.
That are going to get me a big bang for the buck.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I'm assuming the money you've spent is more of a lever on things you're doing than it is like, hey, go do my marketing and get me some business. Like that's right. Not where, if you have to be at that point for that. What in terms of bang for the buck, I look at it as depends on the business, but so give me more details on yours. Yours is you're doing like sales leadership, sales coaching, that side of things you were saying?
Yeah, professional speaker, I'm keynote seminars, workshops, that kind of thing. Yep. Fortune 500s companies are pretty much my base clients.
And so you're probably best off building your credibility versus building your awareness, because like you can use a speakers bureau or reach out directly or put your name on, build a website, those kind of basic things, but you're not going to be advertising to be a speaker at a Fortune 500 company. They're not going to see a Facebook ad and be like, that's the guy I got that. So you're not going to spend money there. But for something like you're going to need to build out a great CRM and stay in touch with everyone. Because if they loved you, you want to stay top of mind because maybe they'll recommend you or bring you back and all those kind of things. You want to continue to build out that pipeline, and everybody you meet, make sure you stay in touch with them, because that constant contact for when they actually need someone, you want to be in front of them. And there's a little bit of budget there in building that list. And then actually spending money on going and attending events where you can meet these people, going and being in the room. Like those are marketing investments that are important. But people think of marketing as, again, this top of the funnel advertising thing. I don't think that with a business that doesn't generate enough to spend $10,000 a month, again, back to that point, should be advertising is probably the best way to put it. You're probably more focused on middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, creating content, creating a great website, creating that email chain, and maybe even text message marketing. That's where I'd be spending the money, is building out that database. And then I'd spend my time growing that database.
All right. First of all, thank you. I've been doing this show for 3 years, 225 shows. This is more than I've talked about my business in 3 years on this show. I'm typically talking to everybody about their business.
We're just going to reverse this. I'm going to interview you if that's okay.
Well, I'm actually really appreciative. So let me throw something else at you. What about Google optimization and putting money into that?
Yeah, I think that you have to do it the right way. Like, you should show up if you can for very niche topics. Like, the problem is, if you're just a speaker on sales goals or sales efficiency, like, there's probably a billion people that you're competing with, not a billion, but probably a good 1,000 people out there that are pitching themselves that way. So it's really figuring out where can you actually fit into a niche on the SEO side and the Google side that people looking for specifically what you do can find you. I would say that's probably a worthwhile investment, but there's ways to do that through content, through press, through things that aren't just like some black box, hacking that an SEO firm will say they're going to do. You could probably do that through some good content and like write about the things you're discussing, be a thought leader in the space, use your social media platforms. But again, none of what I just said costs money unless you're outsourcing those things. Like, those aren't hard expenses.
Right. All right. So let's go there then. The outsourcing versus keeping it inside.
Yep.
Give me kind of the pros and cons of each one.
Great question. I think anyone that's talking about it as a binary option is already wrong. I think it's a balance of both. And if you look at every successful company, they all have agencies and they all have in-house. Like, it's not binary. And so the challenges of agency, I'll start with the reason I started mine. 99% of them are full of it. They have no idea what they're doing. And there's no barrier to entry to starting an agency. You're a 15-year-old kid can put up a website and say they're a Facebook marketer, and people will believe them and probably hire them. So the problem is, like, there's, I think, 220 regulated jobs in California, including milk delivery, but Hawk Media manages about $500 million in other people's money, and there's no government regulation, no certification, nothing. So it's pretty crazy how wild west the marketing world still is, but it makes it really hard for business owners to identify a good agency. So that's number one. Number two, they're not in-house with you all the time. And so for things that you need someone to really be ingrained in the brand, it can be harder to get that with an agency. And so in those situations, and then I'd say three, again, there's always going to be some sort of conflict of interest. Like, we don't run your budget, your company's success. It's our success. It's part of our success. We want you to be happy, but at the same time, that's why we need a decision maker on the other end. We can't just take your budget and go run with it. We need permission to do things. We need to talk about things. We need some guidance and decision making. And so you don't get that. You have to have someone in-house doing that. Like, that's dedicated to the brand. Now, that being said, the problem on the in-house side is you're competing with me and every other major company for marketing talent, and marketing is infinite opportunity cost. I promise you that I can recruit. Most companies will never be able to recruit the type of people I can get. Like, we have a great place to work for marketers. We support them. They get to work with some of the coolest brands. And if you're going to try to go hire someone off the street, you're going to get what you pay for. So it's either going to be hyper expensive, because really good marketers are expensive, or you're going to get a mediocre marketer that couldn't get a cooler job. Like, just to be blunt about it, unless you're the sexiest company out there, if they're such a great marketer, why don't they work at Nike or a great agency? Why are they working for your company? That's a part of the issue you deal with. Number two, so maybe if they're hyper passionate about what you do, that's fine. Let's say you get that. Again, good marketers are also expensive because they know how to make money. They generate revenue. So if you can afford them and you can actually find good talent, let's say that you solve those two problems, now you're operating in a vacuum, which is the detriment to almost every company that tries to go all in-house. My favorite example of this was the CMO of Pepsi went on stage this years ago and was just trashing agencies. They're worthless. They don't need them. We're going to build this in-house. The next ad they came out with, remember when Kendall Jenner solved racism with a can of Pepsi? How well that did? That was their in-house team. So you look at, like, yeah, this is what happens when you work in a vacuum, as well as not knowing what's going on in the market, not knowing how things are shifting, especially with, like, the last few years, how volatile the marketing market has been, like, not knowing what's happening from a global perspective, which you can't in-house. Like, that's really hard. So that's why I believe it's both. Like, you want dedicated people in-house that live the brand. You're also, for things that take a lot of time but are lower level skills, a lot of times you're better off having that in-house because you're paying a markup with an agency. They're making a margin on people. But what I always say is we're the best at things that you need done really well, but you don't need full-time, because you're going to get efficiency with us because you don't need us full-time, and we charge that way. We're fractional, but we're going to be the best at what we do. And so that works really well for advertising channels and digital advertising, email marketing, SMS, chatbots, data work, strategy work, content creation. These are all things that you need really good quality stuff, but you don't necessarily need someone full-time doing it.
Wow. Can you speed up just a little bit more, please?
I'll work on it.
I need more
I
pace
don't
out
drink
of you.
caffeine, but if I go have a cup of coffee, we'll go.
I actually I didn't drink coffee till about 10 years ago. People kept coffee away from me, but
Yeah,
and you're Rob Jollis on steroids. It's very impressive. About 7 different things that you were talking about there that really caught my ear. But one of them is this. Normally at the end of the show, how can we get a hold of you? And we're going to do that. But I want to offer that right now because you're making some really good points, and I'm sense that people are listening going, can we get a little bit now? So how does somebody get a hold of your company?
Yeah, our web, hawkmedia.com, you can sign up. We'll do a free marketing audit for anyone that asks. It's like, we really like to give back on that. And we know what goes around comes around. So happy to look at anyone's marketing. I'm on every social media platform, @/Erik Huberman. So easy to find me too. And it's Erik with a K, not a C. Yeah, hawkmedia.com, HAWKE media.
Good. All right. And don't forget the E, folks.
Yeah.
Because this hawk has an E in it. You're talking, here's where sales and marketing, everybody wants to put us together. But in fact, my quick and dirty definition has always been, because I got to handle it quick on a stage, is marketing is what gets somebody to pull up a chair at a table, and sales is what happens once we pull that chair out and a client sits down in it.
Yeah.
And yet, on the sales side, we can create processes that are very repeatable and predictable. And, I've done a dozen seminars for NASA, 50 financial institutions. I mean, classics, not classics, polygraph examiners, hostage negotiators. I can take a sales message and put it out there. And, obviously I have to do a little bit of adjusting, but persuasion is persuasion.
Yep.
In marketing, I've always been curious and actually went out and saw a couple of marketing people at different meetings I was speaking at, but I go a day early because I'm thinking, I am looking for that repeatable, predictable process. Yep. Is it a unicorn? Does it exist? Are there some repeatable, predictable pieces to this?
I'd say the tactics are predictable and repeatable. The outcome ebbs and flows just like any sales team too.
Right.
You have, I'm a student of sales as much as marketing. And with sales, you have your standard funnel and your averages that play out from, warm lead, from SQL to MQL to proposal to service agreement to blah, 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 blah. Like, you have that. And those averages generally play out, but they don't always. It's the same thing with marketing. Like, things ebb and flow, the market changes. You got to watch your costs on the front end, et cetera. Like, that is all part of it. But that is actually funny you asked that, is like, that is really where I like to play, is the scalable, repeatable part. The flash in the pan, let's go viral part of marketing. I always say maybe spend 5 or 10% of your time and money on that, but build stable ways to grow your business, because frankly, that's what you need for your business to survive. We call the rest sugar rush. Like, you get a celebrity endorsement, unless you do a lot of things with that, it's usually just a quick bump in your revenue and then it's gone. So what did you do to capitalize on that and to keep it going? And that's the scalable, predictable side. And a lot of what we do is that.
Yeah. The magic word on my side is measurable. We want you to work with us, Rob. We want you, Erik. But we not only want to measure where the ball lands in the fairway, we want to measure the swing that we're putting on this ball, because, the old saying, when you can measure it, you can fix it. So, and that's sort of what I'm hunting down right now a little bit. And you're giving me the answer that I've always been hoping is out there, which is, look, it expands, it contracts. It's not one size fits all, but there are certain moves in sales, let's say, as simple as, keeping our questions open and staying off the problem early. And then once we get at an issue, going deeper into it. It doesn't matter whether I'm trying to get a hostage out of a building or a client to do some banking, Bank of America. I still need to great trust and urgency, kind of move through those stages. Yep. In marketing, I got some buckets, some goalposts I'm aiming for.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So funny enough, one thing I don't think you might know, maybe you have in your research, we launched an AI tool 6 months ago that is digesting 8,000 companies' marketing data in real time. So all the different metrics on like all the different media channels. So it could be like your Facebook ads. What's the click-through rate? What's the conversion rate? What's the cost per impression? And we do that across every media channel, across email marketing, across all their revenue data in Shopify, all these different parts of their business. And then we're able to benchmark it against the industry. Because one fallacy, I think, in sales and marketing is comparing your numbers this year versus last year. Let's take the pandemic as an easy example of this. The averages kind of changed across the board. Like, you might have gone better or worse, but they probably weren't the same. Things did change. And so if you're comparing year over year, you're already screwing up versus comparing to the market and what are the metrics out there in my industry and how are all the other sales coaching companies converting on Facebook ads, as an example, and how does that look? And then if I'm not overperforming them, why? Is it my click-through rate? Is it my cost per impression? What are those metrics? This is what we're doing across every company we work with constantly. So we have a real-time analytics tool that we're actually incorporating ChatGPT into, that can literally, you can go, how's my marketing? It goes, well, this is great, but this is bad, and this is good, and this is bad. These are the things you need to focus on. Here's why.
Yeah.
And it's all data driven.
Yeah. Now we really are syncing up here. It's probably the number one question I get when I'm sitting down with a prospect, which is, our numbers. What can we do? And so, like the financial industry, which is really kind of bread and butter for me, probably 70% of my clients are from there. When the market is up, I'm a genius.
Exactly.
And when the market is struggling, maybe I lost my touch a little bit. It's and so it's a hard objection / question with a client to look at them and say, I can measure this swing, but where you are geographically in the country, what product you're launching right now, your own personal timing.
Is there a run at a bank right now? That's going to be tough to close some financial business.
Oh yeah.
Or easy, by the way.
Yeah. So a lot of it comes down to that. And I know it frustrates clients. When I was at Xerox, we had a really cool program we offered to Xerox agencies, and everybody wanted a number. What are these programs doing? Well, we gave them one. We were increasing business by 22% on these sales reps. Hooray for us. Asterisk C bottom, which was, well, coincidentally, we're getting all new hires going through this training, which means, and I say this as a proud 40-year sales trainer, if that person survives, their numbers are going to go up. Okay. Yep. So don't pat me on the back quite so fast, but it's that obsession with numbers. And I just want to tell them there's so much into this.
And it's funny because I live on both sides of this, because I have my own vendors, my own marketing team, my own sales team, but then I'm serving other clients as a business with this. And by the way, I love the Xerox thing. My head of sales got to start at Xerox. So it's real training on sales.
Yes, sir.
And the interesting thing is you're always balancing that. As an owner, you need you really have a high desire for predictability so you can make decisions on, do I spend the money on this? Do I do this? Do I make this expansion? Do I buy this other company? Like, you're trying to make decisions, but you need sales to have some sort of consistency so that you can. And so that is part of that predictability we're talking about. But at the same time, the environment, everybody loves to over-index their personal effect on the situation and under-index the environment. But when you look at the economy, like, it's interesting that everybody struggles at the same time. Maybe it's not about our personal efforts, but there's actually something here to economic cycles. Like, it's just part of it. In the past year and change, we've all seen a slower economic cycle and watched what that does. And, I know, because we have clients that did it. We were experiencing it. Like, you can't help but still want to take control of it and be like, but it's probably the people. It's like, it might not be the people. It might just be the environment. Try to sell, like, it'd be like trying to have a physical movie rent, like a VHS movie rental company right now. Probably not going to do very well, regardless of how good your head of sales is.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And they'll sign up for sales training, and it's like, well, I'll tell you what, I will be able to increase that, VCR business of yours, because we're going to sell 4 of these instead of 3 of them. But it is, there's so much involved in that, which I really like hearing that, because it's one of the key objections that we in the sales training business hear, which is they just keep want to measure year after year, and we're trying to push them back and get that swing measured up and get them to be as effective as possible. All right, cool.
Knowing your metrics, like for us, we watched our volume of leads go down as part of this economic. Our close rate's the same, everything's still good, but then that's what was affected. Whether it's we did something wrong or it's economic, now we know what the issue is, and we can go focus on that issue. Okay, we need to build top of the funnel. That's what slowed down. And from my perspective, we're in an economic time where everyone's talking about cutting everything. Nobody's looking at hyper growth. So like, go figure, the demand for marketing is down a little bit. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so what do we do with that information? As opposed to being emotional about it and freaking out, you go, so that's the metric I have to fix. Cool. Now I can take action to make my business better. And that's worked. I mean, we've done very well because of that data-driven approach to it versus just panicking and running around, which a lot of people default to.
Yeah, that's actually how I guide my clients to marketing or sales assistants, because I've got people who call me up and go, we really want you out here, and you're the best in the world. Yeah, but please, they'll yeah, I'll start looking and they've got nothing in the pipeline. And that's not a sales problem. That's a marketing problem. When I've got somebody who's got a big, robust pipeline and isn't closing those deals, then call me. That's where I come in. But it is funny, again, how this basic concept that we're batting back and forth of this dance between sales and marketing confuses a lot of people.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Okay. Two more questions. I'll let you go. Sure. I'm just predicting that somebody's running down, walking their dog, driving in the car, and kind of back to where we started, which was this marketing budget. Am I putting enough in the marketing budget? Should I add to that marketing budget? How do we know when it's time to outsource and take this out of the company where my companies are either massive or they're on the kind of mom and pop side. Where I might find one person in marketing there. How do you know when it's time to go outside?
Well, or hire someone in-house. Like I would say, like, to all, let's say you can find that, like, again, the reasons of why outsource versus in-house. So you're on the smaller end and you need to do one or the other. And whether you find that person off the street or you find a great agency, it's really when you can give them enough resources to get a lever on that time. Because what people make the mistake of is they hire a 60 grand a year marketing manager, and then they give them $2,000 a year to play with, or $2,000 a month to play with. And it's like, so you're putting 60 grand on a person to be there. They have a lever on their time of less than half that money. They're not going to get very far. There's just not that much they can do. And that's where, frankly, in those small businesses, you probably, as the owner, still need to be the marketer. And that's something I was told before I started this company, was they said at least the first 2.5 years, you're going to be all the sales. Like, you're the owner, you're the founder, you're going to be that person for at least 2.5 years. And in truth, it took me 3.5 years to start scaling out of sales. So, and now we're almost 10 years into this for 250 people. Like, it's scaled at this point, but you as the owner, you're going to drive the revenue. If you can't, you better get really lucky with a partner or a hire, which is super unusual. And generally, that's not going to drive success. Like, entrepreneurs by nature, you got to be good at sales and marketing. And so you've got to figure out how to get your name out there in a more scrappy way. And again, there's many, many, many ways to do that. And this is where, feel free to reach out, because we can talk about individual business and how that would work. But I would say in general, it's figuring out how to get a lever on your marketing too. Like, everything should benefit more. So if you're going to go do an advertisement, it's because it's across the street. Like, if you're doing, let's say you're doing a billboard, it's because one of your biggest partners or clients is across the street from that billboard. So if anything, you're going to reinforce that customer, and then everything else is gravy. So it's about, like, how do I spend money that I know I'll make an ROI on it? No problem. And anything above and beyond that is just gravy. And that's a lot of times how I'm thinking about marketing.
Yeah. I'm going to crowbar this quick story in, but I was listening to Howard Stern, and he mentioned billboards, and he was talking about the late night wars. And when they began to sort of settle things out, Jay Leno in LA had a big billboard saying #1 in late night. And Letterman put one up across the street that said #3 in late night, and probably got more eyes on that billboard out of the creativity of that. But I was listening to that going, well, that took some guts.
Yeah. Lack of ego is important in business too.
Yeah. All right. I promise just two more, but one deals with just the nature of salespeople. And I know you write about this and talk about it a little bit. They didn't label me. I probably would have been labeled ADD. I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I just had to kind of focus harder, and I've used that as a way of kind of really tunnel visioning when I'm working. But I can be distracted, and I know it. But salespeople, I'm training sales audiences, as I said, for 4 decades. You gotta grab them and hold them, because that audience can be all over the place.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit how in this world where a lot of people are ADD, and you're the guy who's getting people's attention. How do you do that?
I would say I don't. So I was someone that was told I had ADD and didn't go to the doctor, and I didn't get on Adderall or anything. But looking back, it's like I wasn't ADD. I was bored, like, just to be blunt. And so I actually, and there's been a lot of articles now about sort of the devalidating the idea of ADD, that it's not ADD, it's high functioning people that get bored quickly. Like, and I hate like putting a syndrome name on something that's actually just like, let's just talk about the logic of it. Similar to what you just said, like, you're glad you didn't get labeled that because you just focused more. Like, I never had, by the way, I'd take almost anyone with ADD, give them something they like to do and see how hard they have trouble focusing. They don't. So apparently their attention doesn't have a deficit. They're just bored. So in that case, and I'm sure there's different levels of this. There are people that do struggle to be attention, but most people that would be qualified, I'd say the sales term you're using, these are just high energy people that you better not bore them. And so when you're talking about getting attention in general, get direct and to the point. Like that, if you want to capture fast working people, get to the fucking point. Like I tell my sales team all the time, like, emails should be 2 sentences. Don't send paragraphs of shit. Don't send links. Don't make people think. Just right to the point. I did it today. I trained a sales team that's not our sales team, another sales team, on how to refer business to us. I was like, here it is. We're the best at what we do. We're really easy to work with. That's what we do. Really easy to work with. We're happy to do a free marketing audit. And if you want, here's the CEO. That's it. Don't do anything else. And so we had a 30-minute session, which they started by saying, I know we're tight on time. And I finished in 10 minutes and was like, thanks guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Like, this was awesome. And they all emailed me after. This was great. Like, get to the fucking point. People think they need these, pages of information. Nobody has time for that shit anymore. And if they do, they're probably not the audience you want.
Boy, this one really got you going. I could tell. I feel like I almost hit a nerve with you. But I am so in agreement. I have 3 kids. I'm so in agreement of, let's stop labeling everybody. I'm not just saying this, for the heck of it. I think one of the greatest assets I have is that I had a dad that got bored easily. And so when he asked me at 5 years old, how was your day? And I got a little into the weeds, he just start looking the other way and get busy doing something else. I considered a blessing. I learned how to tell a story and bring it in under a minute. And at 5, and that serves me as a salesman. It serves me as a professional speaker. Just I actually wrote a piece a week or 2 ago called "The More You Know, the Less You Show," which is just sort of looking at very talented salespeople and how succinct they are with their actions and words, and how newer people, you can tell them, because they haven't learned how to trim it yet. And they're kind of all over. I'll give you 5 reasons, Erik, why we're the best company. Well, that's interesting, because 4 of them are probably going to not be as good as number 1. And that's probably where I'll create my objections anyhow. So you're diluting your own argument. But it's instinct versus logic. I do find that talented people tend to learn to get that message out. Last thing real fast. Agreed. I talk about sales audiences. I talk to other audiences because I'm booked out by bureaus and stuff. So I get some real eclectic audiences. By far, the best audiences in the world are sales audiences. For a lot of what you said, if you get up there and you bring energy and enthusiasm and you get succinct with your words and economize what you're doing, they'll love you. And if you don't, they'll hate you. But you won't worry, where am I with this audience?
No, they're very direct, which is what you need to be. Honestly, they're used to it. They don't want the bulk, and they like the fun of it. Like, sales cultures are fun if you do it right, because they're high energy, they're excited. Things are volatile. So if you can make it fun, it gets them through the shit that knows that they hear more. I always talk about this in sales. Like, I have to tell my rest of my team this, like, understand that a good sales team is converting at, I don't know, 20% on opportunities or something. Like,
it'll depend on the product, but yeah,
exactly. But usually it's not majority. So more than half the time, almost every seller is hearing no and why they suck or losing. They're losing the majority of the time. And so you have to be a certain type of person to do that. And you have to understand who you're talking to when you're talking to that, because they're constantly getting hit and they build thick skin, but that comes with, an impatient audience too.
Bingo. I was on a panel about a year ago, and the other panel, it was virtual, but it was in Europe, and they were asking what you look for in a salesperson. I think I was in kind of a cranky mood, but we got the standard. Well, they need to know everything they can about their product so they can explain it. It's like, not that one. And and they came to me, and I said, what would I look for in a salesperson? pretty much what you just said, Erik. I said, I want somebody who can take a punch.
Yeah.
You're going to get knocked down a lot. You dust yourself off. Don't take it personally. Learn from it and step forward. I can teach you the product. I can teach you a lot of different things. It's hard to teach somebody or even observe if somebody can take that brutal no, as you said, and work with it. If you can, the rest of this is going to fit just fine. But you got to be able to take a punch in this business, not just in sales. I'm assuming your business as well.
Yep.
All right, man. Last question. You're how old are you? What are you
36.
like? How old?
36.
36. All right. You look 26. You're a rat. If you could go back to you at 25, maybe a little bit after that $350 year, but you at 25, tell me one or two things you'd whisper in your ear.
Keep going, keep swinging the bat. Running a business, you're always going to be dealing with shit. Get used to it. That's probably it. Because I think it would have been really a lot easier when starting if I knew running a business as the owner, you're going to deal with the biggest problems of the business. Welcome to the party. It's what you signed up for. So getting real with that took me a few years. And once I did, it was a lot easier. And then honestly, one of the most recent, I love this quote. It's a video with Tom Hanks and a bunch of celebrities sitting around a table. But he says one of the things he loves to keep in mind is this too shall pass. Things are going great. Everything's going well. This too shall pass. Things are really hard and falling apart. This too shall pass. So just understand that there's no steady state, that it's always jumping around. And so if it's really good, just be ready because it could go the other way. And if it's really bad, it'll pass. And I think that is super important to remember.
I love it. I love it. I keep I'm with you on the, I really got into Rocky when I was a kid, and just the first one. And the part that really got to me was the fact that he just wasn't going to stay down. Exactly. That was his victory. And for a lot of us, that's our victories. It's you're going to get knocked down. What do you do? Dean Smith, and I'm a Maryland Terp alumni, but Dean Smith said something to the fact that, you can't approach everything as life and death because to begin with, you're going to be dead a lot. And so it's just a matter of how you, my dad would say, put one foot in front of the other, keep going. And I think that's what you'll find in most entrepreneurs. Wow. Did I enjoy this conversation with you? I'm going to need a drink when we get done, but tell me again how people get a hold of you.
Yeah, no, @Erik Huberman on any social channel or just hawkmedia.com. Super easy.
Good. Well, what I love about having a conversation with a guy like you is we start with a bio. It's a very impressive bio, but I've seen other impressive bios, but your content and information is really good. And I don't just say that. Go listen to my shows. I say, thanks for being on the show and scoot off. But I really appreciate having you on. I learned a great deal. Thanks for dissecting me for a minute or two in there. That was helpful. And anyway, just thanks so much for being on the show. I'm really grateful.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everyone. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.